Mcdonald. Getting cloud right, how financial firms stay ahead of the curve. Arturo Arroyo, de Indra. John McDonald, Head of Financial Services, Cloud Governance, Risk and Compliance Strategy en Morgan Stanley. Jorge Pérez Colín, Socio Director de Business Data Scientists, BDS. Y como anfitrión, Abhishek Avashti, EMEA Head of Pre-Sales en Axiom SL. Agradecemos a Axiom SL por hacer posible esta mesa redonda. Welcome Arturo, John, Jorge, and Abhishek to the Risk Management and Trading Conference 2021.
Thank you, and I would welcome everyone to this lively debate on our cloud services and trying to discuss with a very esteemed panel on what are the strategies that companies are employing on delivering cloud, and also discuss some of the challenges that they're facing in doing so. So starting off, I'm introducing introducing myself. My name is Abhishek or Abhi. I head the pre-sales division within Axiom. And I just wanted to talk a bit more about what cloud strategy looks like and introduce the panel which is with me. So cloud technology, as I'm sure you guys are aware, is growing exponentially. Gartner had reported that the market, which was valued at around 150 billion in 2017, has already grown up to 350 billion, and that expansion continues to grow exponentially. Now, this cloud enhancement or facilities that are available is allowing organizations and financial industries to think about what their main USPs are and to leverage the cloud platforms for the performance, their efficiencies, and focus more on the USPs and value creation. Now, as we can see the obvious benefits of cloud, we do want to discuss with the panel here on what are the key strategies that the organization should consider and what are some of the challenges that they should watch out for. So I would love for our panel to introduce themselves. So I'll start with Jorge, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. I'm Jorge Pérez Colín. I'm the managing director of BDS. BDS is Business Data Scientist. So my work or my point of view is about how to use cloud technologies and also the best in class of machine learning and advanced analytics in order to help the financial services firms here in Mexico and the region. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jorge. Arturo, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, my name is Arturo Arroyo. I'm Senior Manager in Minsight and at the Financial Services branch of Indra. We mainly do projects for banks and other financial institutions ranging from digital transformation to risks and financial markets.
Excellent. Thank you, Arturo. And John, finally, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Abby. So my name is John McDonald, and I am the head of our governance, risk, and compliance strategy team for our financial services customers at AWS. So we function as really a kind of like a consulting organization inside of AWS that really helps what I term the Department of Nervousness at financial institutions. So my first and second and third line of defense brethren all align themselves to address all of the common GRC strategies and challenges that happen as you move to the cloud. So how do you differentiate between on-prem to cloud? So, and I work with financial services customers, and my team does all over the globe. So happy to be here.
Excellent. Thank you, John. So kicking it off, there's no doubt that cloud offers significant benefits in terms of cost, flexibility, performance, scalability, and overall resiliency for firms. But I just want to check, based on your experiences, what are the key challenges and disappointments that may come across for financial institutions while they go down this journey? So given we've got one of the global cloud providers in a panel, John, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts in terms of what strategies organizations should consider before they go into the journey?
Oh, it's a great question. I mean, the most important thing is to actually have a strategy. Just using the cloud because the cloud is the current shiny object is not actually the reason to utilize cloud-based technology. So whether it's an infrastructure provider or whether it's a SaaS provider or whatever, you need to actually know why you're doing things. And Gartner has kind of repeatedly said that the challenges with cloud migration, while you have to learn the technology and it's different, it's really all people process. And it's the change of the way things will happen. It's the implementation of DevOps into the model. It's the automation as code and trying to educate your second and third line to be able to go audit something differently. So strategically, it actually really, the best, the way we consult with customers is that it has to be a top of house, top down strategy that says we're going to the cloud for these specific reasons, because there's always going to be cost management and you're always going to have to do an analysis of what applications can and can't go. But you need to have an alignment and executive sponsorship that pushes down, and you do it incrementally. No one moves all of their workloads to the cloud, overnight. You actually build knowledge, build experience, build business cases on an incremental basis. So it allows you to actually do POCs. It allows you to prove the model out. It allows you to learn about how you're going to operate and manage the cloud. So, the best way to look at it is that you have to have a strategy that governs all of the entirety of your move to the cloud. Think of it as the first time someone went to the internet. You actually need to understand all of the different components inside your organization that are going to change, and make sure you actually have plans to address all of those. And I would tell you, in my world, because I spend so much time with the regulators globally as well, that's one of the biggest concerns, is that as they go talk to a financial institution, they want to know why they're doing it. And if the answer is we're doing it to save some money, that's not really what they're looking to hear. It's safety and soundness. They want to understand that there's reasons behind it and that your organization is prepared across all of the different groups.
Excellent. That's great insight, John. Thank you. And Jorge, if you don't mind me asking you, what's your experience in helping financial institutions to explore these cloud benefits and develop a strategy to go down that path?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we have to realize is that maybe we have the expectation of what the cloud can bring to us, also about the way or the philosophy that the firm has about cloud and the benefits from that. And also, as John told, not only the benefits, but also the risk. But I think it's when you're talking to real people in real companies, for doing that for true, you have to be very, very careful. So who are you speaking for? For example, if the willing of going to the cloud comes from the business people, maybe the people from IT are more like I could say like a turkey way of things. If you're talking to the turkey about how wonderful is Christmas or this kind of stuff, but the turkey is going to be part of the meal. He's going to lose a lot of power or something like that. So, and the other way, if the people who are pushing it, the people from IT, maybe the people from business are more thinking about the risk or something about the reputation or cost and this kind of stuff. So. You have to know what is cloud about, what the capacities or the capabilities you need as a firm. Also, maybe you need some help from other people run. But you have to realize that real people in real companies are going to make that decision. Also, they are going to make it happen. So I think that it's very important from my point of view that you have the right message for the right people, because it's going to be painful. And it's going to be riskful. So I think that you have to look about that. But I think in terms of business, money talks. If you have, in my experience, you have a very strong business case, meaning that this is going to be very good for the business and the costs are, you can handle the costs that way. I think it is the best incentive to go to the cloud will be a very good business case, and for my experience is that what is selling this kind of journey. That's the way I think about it.
Thank you. That's very, very insightful. Now, just thinking more specifically about LATAM, I know in early days the business would in LATAM region would rely on access to cloud infrastructure, which is predominantly hosted in the US. But that's steadily changed over time, and we are seeing significant investment by likes of say AWS that's setting up this massive infrastructure in Brazil. Similarly, we've seen Azure and Microsoft go to Mexico. So we are seeing this trend of embracing the LATAM region, and there's a lot of investment that's coming from the large cloud providers in the LATAM region. So I just want to understand a bit more of how the financial institutions in the region are becoming more and more aligned and getting more cloud strategy built into their business cases. So Arturo, with your experience with large financial institutions, I just want to understand, how are you seeing LATAM leveraging cloud strategies?
Oh, LATAM is, as you know, a great and big potential market for technological and financial services as well. So I think the big players here in LATAM stay and they're trying to catch up on the new pressure they have against fintechs. So they are trying to use the new technology and they are trying to use it fast, but they have a lot of restrictions alongside their architectural legacy systems, as well as the regulator trying to let them make the moves without putting a risk on the information or money of the people that use these financial institutions. So as John said, I think the main way that they are addressing this problem and trying to penetrate on the market is building a strategy along with the cloud, not using the cloud as a new object, as the state-of-the-art object, but instead as a part of a strategy alongside with the regulators. And as well, I think one of the missing parts that are having most of the biggest players on the market, which I see from my experience, is part of what Jorge says. The cultural factor of the people that are intervening in this process, it's a real battle between them. So if you don't have a strategy aligned from top down, it's going to be a lot of effort. But they are using it right now, step by step, trying to move forwards, and maybe in the near future using transactions and something that more sophisticated.
Understand. Thank you, Arturo. And it's a nice segue into looking at it from a regulatory standpoint. So financial services has always been the most heavily regulated industries in the world, and regulators have typically taken a very cautious approach of how financial industry is leveraging cloud for critical functions, and there have been concerns around security, on privacy of data, moving of this data between different boundaries, and potential concentration risk that's now seen by regulators with cloud providers having most of the data and probably sensitive data from some of these large financial institutions. So just want to understand, based on the experience that you guys have, how do you see the regulators in LATAM responding to cloud coming into play and increasingly the financial industries leveraging the cloud benefits that are available? And John, you mentioned you've been traveling around the world talking to different regulators. How do you see the regulators in LATAM compared to some of the regulators in other parts of the world?
Well, that's a lot to unpack. It's a good question. I never want to actually say anything that seems critical of anybody, so that's not the intent. All the regulators, I mean, and I'm generalizing, but everyone has their own priority. Everyone has their own history of the things that they've had issues with in their own country, and so they're very different in different areas. And even the strongest of regulators in Europe have had some recent issues with some companies that they actually haven't managed that well. So I think in general, what they're trying to make sure is, the regulator's job is to protect people's money. At the end of the day, financial regulation is making sure that the money I put into a bank is safe, and in trading is actually fair and equitable. And so they're not concerned about whether or not you're saving money. That's great. They're concerned about safety and soundness. So all of the regulators globally want to make sure that they're fulfilling their obligation to make sure that if you're using a new technology and as you go to the cloud, how are you doing it? Some are more advanced than others. Some are further down the path. MAS in Singapore actually has always been kind of out in front of the whole world from that standpoint. And so we spend a lot of time talking to them. The EU has a lot of our own cloud guidance that's come out. The Brazilian central bank pushed out, has put out cloud guidance, and a number of other, Mexico has for fintechs and other financial services customers. So I think everybody's moving at their own pace. I think the only issue they have, which is Arturo's point, is that there are a lot of places where the fintechs can just pass them. You just start a company tomorrow that just starts taking people's money, and they don't have the legacy baggage that actually a financial institution actually has. Now, they don't have all the money, but all of a sudden they're offering services to customers in a way that the financial institution might not be able to do it. So I think what we've seen is not necessarily a harmonization, but we have seen the regulators looking at what other regulators are doing. The way we advise our customers is to try to create a high watermark for security, for privacy, for governance and controls. So create to the highest standard, because all of our technology, not as an AWS sales pitch, but all of our technology works the same all over the world. The services run the same, data centers are built the same. And so you're able to replicate those security controls. But regardless of your CSP, trying to make sure what's the high bar for security you need to have, if that's your set of automated controls, then the challenge is taking all of that and explaining to the regulators what the cloud is. And that sounds kind of simple, but it's actually something I spend a lot of time with my financial services customers on, is what is the narrative of your cloud control framework? What is the narrative of your governance structure around how you're using cloud? Do you know where your data is? Can you, which you should, because you control it all from that standpoint. But can you explain all of this to your regulatory authorities in simple terms, not in a bunch of code that sounds like you're trying to trick them? But so you have to think through what their job is and work backwards, which is the way we use it at AWS, and work backwards from the fact that you'll have to prove this model out regardless of where a regulator is. But you do need to understand, especially for global customers or for customers who operate in a lot of different countries, you really do have to spend some time making sure you understand the subtle differences in each of the regulators' approach, and help educate them on why this is de-risking your environment, because you're able to operate, at scale and have so much redundancy and resiliency than what you actually had. But you also have to push the bounds a little bit to make sure that the reason why the cloud is there is also to drive innovation and service customers better. And the regulators have to understand that. And the challenge for them is their balance between, safety and soundness and innovation. And it's tough. And but a financial institution has to keep that in mind, because the better they can explain to their regulator how they're doing this and how much, I would argue, safer and more controlled that they are, and in terms of the sameness of the technology they're putting in place, that's a pretty big argument to say you're de-risking your environment by going to the cloud, as long as you can explain it to the regulators that way.
Excellent. Thank you very much, John. That was very, very insightful. I don't know, Arturo, if you've got any examples that you've had in LATAM, any discussions that you've been part of, and you can share that with us.
Well, we're always discussing the data. I think data is the main issue right now with using any clouds, any type of cloud, and trying to mixing it with a private cloud, a public cloud, maybe do something hybrid between your on-premise technology and your cloud technology. And mainly, how do you protect the data? So, as John said, one of the main issues of the regulator is to keep the money safe. So what they're doing is they are trying to do baby steps with innovation and digital transformation. The regulator, they are trying to help, but the banks are trying to go faster, and the fintechs try to go faster, and there's always the revenue part of the financial enterprises. So I think one of the most critical problems is that we need also the CSP and the banks and talk to the regulators to fasten up a little bit the pace that they have to put, and explain them, because it's not a simple topic. So we have right now, as an example, in Mexico, intertwined so many laws between this, trying to protect data, trying to protect money, trying to protect information. And it's really, really difficult to make this easier for the clients and for the financial institutions, because, as John said, it will make a greater benefit for everyone if we can use it as a strategic pinpoint place.
Excellent. No, thank you. Thanks a lot for that. Completely agree with you. And just sort of taking it to the next step. So we've got a cloud strategy. The organization have thought through as to what the key benefit they want to drive out of it. It's quite interesting to see what would be the first project that they would host on cloud, because we've seen this debate in organization where they want to either start with something which is maybe less business critical, whereas some organizations tend to go for maybe the biggest gains where they see most benefit and they look to start off with that as the first cloud project. So I just want to know what your experience has been. What has your experience been in terms of the first steps an organization will take to go down a cloud strategy? So I don't know, Jorge, from your experience, what insights can you give us?
Well, I think as I was saying just a few minutes ago, I think that the business case rules. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a great, big operation, a small operation. I think the business case is going to rule, and if you do, right away the business case, so you have to take into note that you have some risk and you have some cost. So if you have the strong business case, you can choose which is going to be the operation that you are going to start with. But I think that we also have to go, I think, maybe 1 or 2 steps behind. I mean, back, because I think the cloud is only the battleground. I think there is some other things that are moving very, very fast, and in some way of thinking or speaking, I mean, the stars is getting together. I mean, you only have not only cloud, but you have also agile, you have also design thinking, execution. So you can put it in one side the way that the companies and the firms are, and I think most of the financial institutions are working in terms of the customer experience. What is the value that the bank or the financial system are bringing for that customer experience? On the other hand, you have the way of you are making the operation of your company. I mean, hyper automatization, which is a buzzword of Gartner, I think that has a lot of things to do in terms of getting the cost down. So if you have these 2 approaches, user experience, hyper automation, design thinking, agile, DevOps, and you realize which is going to be the approach of your company, then you realize that way that the battleground is the cloud. So which kind of game do you want to play in this ground, and that is going to answer which is going to be the first project or the first initiative that you are going to build into that battleground. So for my experience, for example, when I have, I think one of the best experience about a journey to the cloud was not about to bring some system to the cloud, but to bring a whole operation. I mean, that project was sold not as a journey to cloud project, but as a BPO, business process operation into the cloud. And thinking that way, you are going to think not only about the cost that you are saving, about your software, hardware, or whatever, but also about the new business model that you are going to build into the cloud with a different approach or improving your user experience, and also to making the things better in terms of the operations of the company. So again, I think that you have to choose the right initiative or the right system or any process to go to the cloud in terms of the whole approach of what is happening about all this innovation that we are, right now we are, benefit about them.
Great. Thank you. I completely agree with you. One of the things that we found in Axiom is increasingly our clients are asking for a cloud-based solution as default, and we've got, I would say, largely 2 types of financial institutions. There are ones which have got a cloud-first strategy. So any new initiatives that they take by default would be cloud-based, and they have to justify why it can't be in the cloud-first strategy. So that's one type of customer that we see quite often. And the other ones are a lot more cautious. We see that quite a lot in, say, Swiss banks, where they are a bit more cautious about going down the cloud route. There are some laws as well which enforce where the data can be hosted. So it's a bit more cautious about which kind of projects they will host on cloud. So it's interesting. It's interesting how different organizations are taking different approaches. And then and that sort of leads quite nicely into, given that we all understand the benefits of cloud technology in terms of infrastructure, its handling of very large amounts of data, And it's also got a large suite of toolkits that are available. Obviously, AI machine learning is one of them, very close to my heart, and I can talk for hours on it. But I'm just quite keen to understand from your experiences, how are you seeing financial institutions leverage some of the advanced cloud capabilities? And I know, John, you've got a lot of AWS has got a lot of labs which are using some of these toolkits available. So do you want to give us some insights of how they are being leveraged?
Yeah, well, I think that, we've built, our company based on the fact that customers ask for things. So all of our services, as we talk to customers, are really because a customer needed to do something better, different, faster, quicker, stronger. So everything evolves from there. But I think that, I'm going to use Jorge's turkey analogy, actually, because I thought that was pretty funny, is that the different people in a company look at the cloud as a value for different things. A data scientist isn't interested necessarily in closing a data center, but the infrastructure manager who doesn't want to pay the leases anymore and has already virtualized half their environment wants to get out of that physical center. So what we really start to see is, I think back in the day, so when I got in the cloud, years 7, 8 years ago, it was very much kind of an infrastructure play. It was, I want to store things, I want to back things up, I want to move my virtualized environment, and I can go build some apps. Now, because of all the services that all the CSPs offer and all the different components, you get into this very specific thing where, well, if your biggest issue, which is what happened during COVID, is you need to increase your call center overnight because everyone needs to work at home across the globe, and Connect for us became a huge solution. Workspaces became huge solutions. And so there were things that weren't necessarily the growth patterns of things that we thought that we were planning on before COVID. I mean, they were growing and they're big services, but that's not the really attractive new shiny object, artificial intelligence or machine learning. So I think what we've started to see is, to both Jorge and Arturo's point, is the banks have to solve specific problems, and some of them are focused on, I need to improve the customer experience. So I want to have a better call center environment. I want to build my new mobile app completely in the cloud. So I'm going to build and engineer something from new. Others have to get out of data centers because they don't want the hardware anymore. They want to get rid of licensing costs. Their backup facility for something isn't actually where they would actually like it to be. So what we really started to see is the conversations we're having with financial institutions start to really diverge, and we're talking to the data scientists about how they could do a project much quicker to get the data into the environment, to be able to use, SageMaker or some machine learning tool to be able to do it. And that could be a shorter term project. The longer term projects are, I want to close 12 of 27 data centers and migrate my workloads in, because at that point in time, as much as AWS would like to sell cloud to everyone, we'll stop and talk to the customer to say, that's going to require you to learn a lot. You're going to have to upskill your people. You're going to have to change your people, your process, the technology behind it. It's not going to happen overnight. We need to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, and we need to make sure you do it in the right order. So I think a lot of the way the technology adoption by the financial institutions it's sort of short, medium, and long term. You sort of, what's the solution? What can be helpful in the short term? What's something new that you can do? It's why the fintechs can come in and build a whole bank in like 15 minutes, because they can just build it that way. What are my medium-term projects? And then if I have a long-term strategy. And so it's all of those strategies trying to align themselves. So back to Jorge's turkey analysis that I'll close with is that, one benefit to explaining Thanksgiving to the turkey is not a good thing for the turkey, but for everybody else who gets to eat the turkey, it's actually a good thing. So we tend to have now multi-dimensional conversations where one thing is really important to one group inside of an institution, and it may not be to another. But that has to be prioritized, and that becomes the challenge. Is you can't move everybody at one time. You actually still have to get the infrastructure in place. You have to have the security guardrails. You have to have the automation in place. So it's great when financial institutions are very cloud positive, or even if they're not, and they're trying to figure out what they want to do. But we tend to, because again, I work with the Department of Nervousness, we tend to really try to focus on making sure the institution is going to get to the right place. And sometimes we have to help throttle our own customers. Like, no, that's not what you want to do first. Let's actually get you the baseline set of skills and your folks trained and get everybody, because the worst thing in the world you can do is go to the cloud for the wrong reason and not have the people to actually manage the environment. So we tend to really look at financial institutions as, there's a lot of great technology out there. There's a lot of things they can use to innovate for customers, and they're doing it. but we also want to make sure that they're doing it in a safe and sound way to communicate it to the regulatory authorities.
Great. Well, it's interesting because from our experience, just to sort of add to that, one of the big benefits we are seeing with cloud, you've got access to very large amounts of data, all sort of stored nicely in a consistent manner, and that really enables us to throw machine learning to it to see what are the operational deficiencies that are there in organizations. So like I'll give you an example. So we've got clients which work with very large volumes of data. A lot of the operation side of things tends to be in data correction, identifying those issues, fixing it. And one of the big benefits we've seen being in a cloud sort of environment where you have access to these large volumes of data, you have access to strong performance capabilities because the infrastructure is there, that you can run some of these machine learning algorithms, which identify some of these anomalies, also predicts corrections, and that would make the end-to-end op model, which organizations have, a lot more efficient. So it's a great way of some of the additional or advanced capabilities that we can leverage by just being in a strategy which allows us to access these large volumes of data as well as some performance which is available on the cloud. It's unfortunately it's a shame that we can't maybe cross-reference some of those learnings between organizations because of obviously privacy of data and security, etc. So it would be great if organizations could come together and say, you know what, we'll share the metadata across all our firms, and then we can come up with some efficiencies across the board. So yeah, that would be great, but I can also see the reasons why that's going to take a long time. With that in mind, I would love to ask you guys, what do you guys think of where the cloud strategy is going? Where do you see it in the next 5 years down the line? Just wanted to get your thoughts. So maybe I'll start with Jorge. Where do you see this whole cloud architecture heading to in the next, mainly for financial institutions?
Well, first of all, I think that yes, everybody is going to be in the cloud in, I don't know, somewhere in the future. But I think that right now and for the next 5 years, I think we are going to have a hybrid cloud. I mean, yeah, I know that the strategy cloud first sounds good or a good way to start this thinking. But I think that we are going to see a very mixed ecosystems of clouds. I mean, from really bare metal systems, and also about the financial institutions and banks, they have very old legacy systems, very difficult to migrate to the cloud and this kind of stuff. So I think that we are going to see these core banking systems very embedded into the bare metal for the banks, and using this APIs and technology and this kind of stuff. We are going to see from that part to see some private clouds. So the big banks are right now investing in their own private clouds, and then some public clouds. So I think from now to the next 5 years, we are going to see this mixed scope or architecture of that, and it's not because cloud is not good. I mean, you have a lot of legacy. Besides the legal problem or whatever, but you have a lot of legacy that you have to handle. So from my point of view, we are going to be this mixed, architecture for the next, 4 to 5 years. That's my point of view.
Completely agree. In fact, exactly as you're saying, we are seeing a lot more focus on integration between different cloud infrastructures or architectures, and focus on building common ways of talking to each other. It is quite ambitious, and I know we've got John in the forum who's probably going to champion the AWS thing. But we have to think about financial institutions having, exactly as you said, a myriad of different solutions, and the focus which we are noticing is on giving integration between them. So like if you've got a private cloud and a public cloud, they can talk to each other. You can move data around more seamlessly. So that's definitely a trend that we are seeing. I completely agree with you on that. And Arturo, from your experience, where do you see it evolving?
Yeah, I agree with Jorge. I said it at first. The legacy systems, I think it's one of the main infrastructure problems that banks and financial institutions have. So, I think from 5-6 years, maybe they're gonna have a hybrid composition between public and private clouds. What I see really difficult, and I think the steps they're treading lightly with the financial institutions, is with any kind of type of transaction between money in clients and financial institutions. So you can have your CRM, maybe you can develop an app on the cloud, but the transaction, it's, I think, the specific factor that also the regulator and the financial institutions are taking an eye on that. And as you know, the core systems are made of transactions of your clients. So that's why I think it's going to maybe take for those systems to be migrated to the cloud a little bit more. But I see a hybrid model between 5 and 6 years, a really big, mature hybrid model.
Excellent, thank you. John, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I would agree with both with all of you. I mean, I think that there are always workloads that aren't, maybe in a perfect world, like you could magically move them to the cloud, but there are other workloads that are just, a mainframe modernization is not a 15-minute exercise.
Yeah.
And that's the technical debt that a financial institution has. So the cloud could enable you to use that data better, quicker, faster, stronger to make better product offerings. But are you going to tomorrow make a decision to move that mainframe? Well, that's a very long-term decision. And just like any other decision, it's sort of a one-way door. Once you decide to move that, you've spent all the time on it, it's a long decision to be able to do that. And I think that what you'll see globally is a very mixed, I would say a mixed bag, but it very much will be hybrid, because you'll see countries that have actually pushed forward much further are okay with it. Their regulators are okay with it. They actually see the value of it. The regulators themselves are starting to use the cloud for regulatory reporting. I mean, needed for everything that Axiom actually does. I mean, you're starting to actually transmit data in the cloud between a customer, who's reporting and a regulator that way. So they start to see those benefits. But I think it really all comes down into what's the strategic problem that a bank has to solve. I mean, it's a big deal to say I'm going to go take my legacy mainframe infrastructure, core banking system, and go modernize it and literally go build it yourself. You really have to sit down and go look at Murex and a lot of the other folks and a lot of the other the other core banking systems that actually could do that for you, because that's a big decision. Are you going to spend hundreds of $1 million on your own development? Or is that not the biggest benefit for you, and you can build the interoperability between your own environment and what you choose in the cloud, what SaaS providers you're sending actual data to? So, I mean, I think it's that strategy. I think the biggest challenge is 5 years from now, if you aren't executing your strategy, you've just spent 5 years kind of watching everyone else pass you. So you need to understand why you're making decisions, and the cloud migration and strategy needs to look out 1, 3, 5, even 7 years to see, like, where are you trying to get to? Because we learned at my former employer, I mean, the cloud has debt too. If you were the first person into the cloud, into AWS in 2015 or 16, the way in which we actually had to secure the environment is not that it wasn't secure, but it's completely different now because of all the solutions and the services and the ways things are actually done. So the cloud in itself is always evolving, and you have to make sure that you actually can get what you want in place to take advantage of it. And so it's looking at all the different solutions that can be provided, I think, is what provides the value, whether it's machine learning or a contact center or whatever it is, that taking advantage of those and learning from them help then educate you on how best to use the technology to achieve your goals, which is to service your customer.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, John, for that insight. Just thinking of some of the challenges that organizations face in getting a cloud strategy in place and moving down this path. The thing which keeps coming back again and again is security, and having to go through the hoops to convince people that this is a secure environment. It ticks all the boxes. Is probably at least as secure as your on-premise sort of infrastructure that's in place. But at least from my experience and the experience of Axiom, it's a discussion we have repeatedly, multiple times with every organization, and you have to go through certification, SOC certification, etc., to prove that we've got a highly secure environment. And what we are noticing is regulators also are a lot more comfortable, and actually, at least we're seeing that with some regulators who are actually directing their financial institutions to go for a cloud offering because they're comfortable on the levels of security which is on offer. So I just want to get your experience as experts. What kind of questions you see getting asked, and how does an organization go through the difficult security questions that get asked? So I just want to check with all of you. So start with Jorge. From your experience, have you been exposed to this kind of security questions coming up, and how does the organization navigate through that?
Yes. Well, from a point of view, I think we have seen a nice evolution of the way of thinking about security in cloud. The first we have the no. It's not possible. It's not questionable. We have not going to get into that conversation. It's not, we have all the regulation, whatever. This is the first phase. But I think that right now we are in a second phase because the financial institutions are really more open, more willing to start this conversation. Okay. Yeah. So right now they're starting this conversation. They're doing their homework in the way that they are assessing what they have been offering, and I think they are very clear about, when we were talking about this hybrid architecture, there is different security question if you are looking for a infrastructure as a service, if you're looking for a platform as a service or software as a service, and it depends. The problems or the risks they have in this. So right now, I think that they're right now doing their homework, they're doing the questions, and they're getting involved in some of this project getting into the cloud. But I think that there is a third state that we have to follow. First is everybody say no. Now the IT people are saying, doing their homework and start to doing that. The third level will be that the people from legal are willing to get into this kind of conversation because, well, from my experience, the business case was very clear. Technically, it was very clear, but we spent, I think, more than 75% of the time with the people of our legal, talking with the people of that legal, and that was, I think, maybe 2/3 of the hours billing for that was for legal and not for the people from IT. So I think that's my experience, and I think that sometime in the future, the people from legal are going to start doing this conversation without more hesitate.
Thank you very much for that. I completely agree. I could relate to it when you're saying. Arturo, your experiences on this part.
Well, I think the security problem is always in hand with the risks, right? So risks are everywhere and we can't avoid them. So I think the first mistake with the cloud is associating that cloud is bulletproof and foolproof, and trying to compare it to something that's never going to fail. And it's not like that. We don't have anything like that. Even on premise, one of my smaller clients threw all their ATMs out of service for 3 hours because someone spilled a cup of coffee on the rack on the server. So the risk has to be mitigated. And I think there's a lot of evolution and cultural maturity on how the cloud has been helping with these security issues. And we have to keep on educating our clients and the regulators, and also to know where do we have to mitigate all the risks associated with the usage of cloud. It's not going to be bulletproof. Nothing is. But we can really, really, really have a better something that we have right now with the cloud.
Completely agree. Thank you very much for that. John, I'm sure you've faced this question a million times. What is your strategy to calm the nerves of people who are a bit worried about security?
Yeah, I wish there was a button that just said "be safe" and you press it and it deploys into the cloud and everything actually works correctly. But I mean, to all the points that have been made, I mean, yes, we have this conversation all the time with every customer in an ongoing manner and with the regulators. And security means different things to different folks, and a lot of the conversation is very much to Arturo's point, it's a risk-based conversation. Why are you doing something? How do you need to do it? And then are you going to culturally accept the fact that the implementation of that control could be very different in the cloud than the way you've tried to do it on-prem? While I'm not a security, engineer, I spend a lot of time in that space. And, we've gone and met with customers who had so many firewall rules in their on-prem environment, their network was just a giant firewall rule. And I understand that. And that's what somebody put in place to protect the perimeter of the castle keep. But it was so complicated to do anything that it became somewhat ridiculous, in terms of the amount of, a change management process for a new port might take 6 months. So when a customer is willing to have the conversation, and not from a sales pitch standpoint, we do security immersion days with customers to say, like, look, these are the common risks you need to address, and you're going to address them differently in the cloud than you do on-prem. But some of the biggest issues are like, where do security breaches come from? Not all of them, but a lot. It's because somebody didn't patch something. Really, that's what we're actually dealing with now with a lot of the stuff. And it's still like 200 mean days, I guess, that a lot of the metrics that show up for people to patch a security vulnerability somewhere. So there is a lot of, and I like the way Arturo put it, it's not magic. The cloud's not magic. The cloud is basically a series of controls put in place in a repetitive way that allows you to create sameness if you want to. So if done right, I can create a continuous compliance environment that is impossible for someone to go in and change that control, because it would notify me correctly. It could be self-healing. I could force rehydration of every single one of my compute instances. There's lots of things you could do in the cloud. So we tend to spend all of our time on education with customers to say, what problems are you trying to solve? How are we going to do it? And then what are the best practices? And then, we, like our other brethren, then build patterns for all that. And that's the biggest thing that we talk to regulators about too, is, this pattern can be repeated across the entire enterprise. So, no S3 bucket can be made public. Nobody has access to something they're not actually supposed to have. All the blast radius is reduced because of the way AWS account structures are done. And we have a lot of success when we talk to regulators and take them through their own understanding of well-architected and things like that, to get them to understand that there are a lot of common risks that were accepted by the customer or by a regulator because they followed the risk acceptance process, air quote, that double air quote, that at the financial institution. Well, it didn't make them secure. So part of the reality is that, in my view, for real, I believe the cloud can de-risk a lot of the common areas that customers have problems with. It creates new risks, but the removal of those things that can happen more often, whether it's operational resiliency or security, it takes education, time, and practice, and putting those patterns in place to be able to repeat them, but then being able to show that that pattern works and is enforced mechanically, logically across the entire environment, where no one can violate that control. So you have immutable security and provable security, which becomes a big part of it. That's the benefit the cloud can bring. You just have to take the time to go through the process to do it, because it's not gonna fix it itself. You need to understand what it is that you're doing to be able to secure the environment.
Excellent. Thank you very much, John. Really appreciate your answer. It was a very lively debate. I really thank all the answers that you guys have given. I believe you've got some audience questions which you can get into.
About the cloud and all around the overworld that is all around us, technically talking.
Indeed, we live surrounded by the cloud. We have some questions for you. How can regulation help and not prevent the adoption of cloud technologies?
Oh, that's a great question. Jorge, I'll start with you. Do you want to look into that answer?
Well, again, I think it's more about the willing of the people to talk about this kind of topics, and not only about the financial institution banks, but also about the regulators. So I think regulators are, for my point of view, maybe because I'm Mexican, they're really having this kind of talks. But again, the law is always behind all the evolution of any social or technology innovation. So again, I think that we are going to see the things changing, but I think it's more about the way, again, that there is a business case, that everybody is getting to the same direction, so you can mitigate all the problem of the legal things that they have all around this journey to cloud.
Other of the questions of our audience, Claudia?
Yes. How to become global and effective locally using cloud?
I'm sorry, can you please repeat that? We didn't quite catch
Of course,
that
of course. How to become global and effective locally using cloud?
Oh, okay. John, this seems to be right up your street.
Well, I think that, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I think the reality that we wish we could put a AWS region in every country in the world. And that would be wonderful if we could. And we've made, you know, I think it's one of the things we'll always plan on. But it's the infrastructure behind any CSP's regions is very substantial. It requires a big, huge investment in several years to actually build out. So a lot of what we try to focus on with customers is that, you know, we're not going to be able to have physical infrastructure everywhere, but we can create connectivity into our environment to be able to do it. And then using when you use a CSP and you're using a cloud provider like AWS, the control environment that we create is the same all over the globe. So however you secure your data, how you manage your data, how you implement security controls, how our data centers are managed are the same. So the benefit becomes a pattern that you create for use in Brazil is the same pattern that can be used in America or in the EU or in Asia in the infrastructure. So the pattern-based repetitiveness is what actually decomplexes security, because you can actually run the same thing over and over again, and your developers don't have to worry about re-engineering something. So the benefits of using in a CSP structure for someone is that they can address their local requirements, you know, however they need to meet them. But as they go do business in other countries, you're able to repeat the same control environments to that high bar without having to relearn a new technology. Hopefully that answers your question.
What goes first, business case or technology solutions?
Arturo, do you want to answer that one?
I'm financial at heart, so I always said business case first. You know, you can have any technological innovation if it's not associated with a business case and a whole strategy behind it. The technology doesn't make you; that's what the strategy makes you. And the technology is only helping you with the tools to make your life easier or harder sometimes.
An idea given in this panel was how clients increasingly are asking or looking for financial services through cloud solutions. In this case, how to build this omni-channel marketing in financial services, how to make consistent and also accountable all these different kind of cloud solutions that any institution, any financial institution or any other kind of service has to offer to their clients.
I'll start off with that. I would love for
Absolutely.
my co-panelists to add to that. So I think one of the key messages that we've been discussing is that for every solution, we need to have a strong business case. We need to understand why we are doing a cloud journey, a cloud strategy. So one of the things that from an Axiom point of view, what we found is we develop solutions which solve a specific business case, and those solutions that we are trying to solve, the solutions that we are producing to solve those businesses, the business cases, are consistent and they can be applied across different types of businesses. So one of the things that John mentioned, where we can have a technology stack, and as long as the pattern that's being built can be rolled out in different locations, is the same kind of concept where we've got a solution which is solving a specific problem. That problem would be faced by multiple institutions, and the problem that the way we are solving it can be reapplied across all the institutions. So the key is to know what the business case is, know what problem we are solving, and then the solution can be leveraged across multiple clients, across multiple use cases. And I don't know if any of my panelists want to add to that.
Well, and it's also about client experience finally. how to build this consistent and accountable experience all around the different solutions. Well, going further, where is Latin America in cloud adoption? How, what are you looking at Latin America is facing against the rest of the world?
Jorge, do you wanna go for it, because it's similar to what we were discussing earlier.
Where is Latin America? The condition and development, technically talking, in order to be at the same level to compete with the rest of the world in the cloud? Do we have the right infrastructure? Do we have the right people, the level of education, of training? Do we have also the level of development of the solutions and the conditions to spare all this technology in development?
I don't know if that question is for me, but from my point of view, talking about technology, and in this point, I really agree with Arturo when he says that the business case rules. I think that maybe the business cases are different between different countries and different regions. But talking about only about technology, we have the same technology that everybody can have all around the world. That's the reason, or that's the nature of the cloud. So, but maybe the specific difference could be, for example, and maybe this is only anecdotal and only because the clients that I have before. But for example, if they say to me, if I told to them that the cloud is putting in some facility in United States, they say no, because there is a Patriot law, so I don't want to have my data in the United States, and maybe they are more willing to have the data in a cloud that is having in Asia or maybe in Europe. But I think for your specific question about if we have the same tools, yes, we have it. If you tell me if we have the same knowledge, I think that knowledge is also very pervasive. We have the same knowledge, everything is on the net. And if you say that if we have the same or human resources, maybe not, but again, you can tap very easily from resources from India, from Argentina, from Mexico, or all around the world. So I think the difference is not about technology, resources, or human resources or knowledge. It's about your specific approach to your own market, and maybe putting together this topic with the topic from that you just put in the table before. Is the way that, for example, that you're approaching your omni-channel strategies. Is again, what is your whole strategy as a company? What's your philosophy? And then try to tap for the better that you can have it. And again, in technology, it's the same technology, the same knowledge. So maybe it's only a specific regulatory or idiosyncratic difference between different regions. But I think that, John, maybe you have more experience than me in terms of, from a global perspective. I don't know, what do you have to say about it?
Yeah, I think, Jorge, I think your answer is right. I mean, I think that, there's always going to be a data privacy issue or a data residency issue that someone has in one country or another. I mean, Latin America, all the laws are not, it's not like the EU, every country deals with things very differently. But I think the tools are there. I think the process is there. The tools are there. I think the technology, the ability to get educated. But I think to Jorge's point, and this kind of goes back to the omnichannel question the same way, is that you have to decide to use the technology at some point. You can talk about it for a very long period of time, but you actually have to get out and use it. So like we just made a big announcement around with Bank of Colombia. Itaú is actually spending a lot of time actually, moving into the cloud that way. So it's the use cases drive the need and education to be able to use the technology, which helps drive the conversations with the regulators. I just think that everyone needs to understand that if you do control your data and you secure it, the CSP is not securing it, you're securing it, therefore you own the encryption keys and you have access to the data, and whoever the CSP is doesn't, where it actually is becomes somewhat irrelevant because some of that transaction information has already been floating around out there. I mean, every bank in every country in the world who issues a credit card to a customer and that customer has credit card data flying around all over the place from that standpoint. So data has already left this imaginary border in a lot of cases. But I think the biggest thing for that we look at anywhere in the world is as the use cases get adopted, we want financial institutions to talk to each other and to talk to their regulators about what they're doing and learn from them. I mean, that's a lot of where we've built our experience too. So we have whole teams. I mean, I just hired a compliance specialist on my team in Mexico a little while ago. We have folks in all over Latin America as well. And so we're trying to focus our efforts to make sure that we don't treat any customer the same as another customer. We actually want to look at each customer's needs and evaluate what they're trying to get to. So I think that the tools that exist, it's just a matter of the strategy and the prioritization at all the financial institutions to be able to decide they want to use the cloud to solve some actual real problem and get benefit from that, and then advocate for that and move to the next problem and move to the next problem.
Well, it's a great point what you are exposed. The challenge is to take the decisions. The tools are there. The data is all around there. The solutions, the waste of the usage of technology is already given. It's just a decision to use it and use it with creative ways. Thank you very much to all four of you. It has been more than a pleasure to have you here in this great conference.
Yes, thank you for this great panel, y nosotros vamos a continuar ahora con los cursos y talleres y les recordamos que no se pueden perder el keynote speech de Gary Kasparov al terminar estos.
Bueno, pues muchas gracias. Again, thanks to all our panelists.
Thank you
very much. Y bueno, pues es el momento en el que la señal nos lleva ya al siguiente punto, al siguiente contenido. ¿Estamos listos? Producción, para el siguiente contenido. Gracias, corre video.